This is an overview and analysis of my autonomous environment created for the Artificial Intelligence for Games module in my third year of university. We were given the option to create either a boss battle or an autonomous environment. I opted for the latter, which is based on an Argos store, because I have experience in this environment. We were also given various options for how to build our games, with or without a game engine and in any language. This project was written in C# using Unity. The initial idea for the simulation was for customers to come into the store either to order an item or collect one that was ordered in for them. Staff members would be on hand to help customers in need and to give out items brought out by picking staff, the player. I also envisioned a member of staff putting away items from a delivery, which would replenish stock throughout the day. The manager would check the shop floor every now and then and use goal-oriented action planning to assign tasks to staff members or to help out the front of house staff if the shop was busy. The final state of the project does not include the delivery staff or the go-out functionality for the manager, and customers can only collect items they have ordered in store. The gameplay loop for my project is relatively simple from a high-level view. It involves customers ordering an item at a browser and waiting for the player to collect their item from the stockroom. The player can place the item either directly on the collection desk or just behind the front of house staff who will give out the item themselves. This cycle then repeats. There is also a manager who moves between one of the offices and the shop floor, repeating this forever, but pausing for 5 seconds at each location. These locations are predefined in the code, but the player can cycle between different pathfinding algorithms for the manager to use, including A*, breadth first search, and depth first search. The customers and front of house staff both have behavior management systems that I have created, and used nav mesh agents for their movement. I created the customer first, which uses a finite state machine to determine its behavior. The customer has a total of 9 different states, however 4 of these are within a single state, making this a hierarchical finite state machine. The enter store state directs the customer to the store's front door, utilizing its nav mesh agent. Once the customer is in the store, they move to the browse state, and within the browse state immediately into the search state, where they are searching for an available browser to use. Once they have found a browser, they move to the go to browser state, which constantly checks if they have reached the browser yet. Upon reaching the browser, they enter the find item state. This state has a coroutine which randomizes how long the customer will take to decide on an item to buy. If they are taking too long, the customer has a bool variable which, when true, notifies a staff member that they need help. Whether independently or with help from a staff member, they will eventually decide on an item to buy. At this stage, they move to the pay for item state. However, if the customer needs help but is waiting too long, they will simply give up, move to the exit store state, and leave the building. In the pay for item state, the customer attempts to place an order. If the requested item is in stock, an order will be created, sent to the stockroom class, then the customer exits the finite state machine within the browse state and proceeds to the wait state. However, if the item is not in stock, they move to the exit store state. In the wait state, the customer moves to a random location within the waiting area. Once their item is ready to collect, they move towards the item, collect it, and then enter the exit store state, which makes them leave the store. The 9th state is an idle state, which the customer should theoretically never enter, but is used as a failsafe if the customer's state is ever null. Within the idle state, if the customer is inside the store, they move to the browse state. If not, they move to the enter store state. The staff member's behavior is determined by a behavior tree. The root node of the behavior tree is a selector, which has 3 child nodes, 2 sequencer nodes and a roam action node. Both sequencer nodes have 2 child nodes, a condition and an action node. The first sequencer node is for customer-related behavior. The condition node checks if any customers need help while browsing. If the staff member identifies a customer who needs help, the node returns success, and the active node in the tree moves to the action node, where the staff member moves to the customer and restarts their coroutine for finding an item, forcing it to complete within 5 to 10 seconds. Once the customer's coroutine is complete, the staff member considers the customer to have been helped and returns success. As the root node is a selector, the behavior tree has been completed and starts again. However, if there are no customers in need of assistance, this node fails and the tree moves on. The root's second child sequencer node is focused on orders. The sequencer's condition node checks if the player has placed any items on the back desk only, not the collection desk, as customers can access this already. If there is an item to give out, this node returns success, and so the sequencer moves to the action node. The action node tells the staff member to pick up the item and take it to the collection desk, making it available for the customer to pick up. If there are no customers who need help, and also no orders to give out, both sequencer nodes fail, and so the roam action node runs, which sends the staff member back behind the front desk. The player is controlled using the WASD keys to move, and the mouse to look around from a first-person perspective. The player's main goal has already been covered: collect customers' items and deliver them to the front of the store. The player's current destination is displayed in the top left of the screen, and when the player receives new information, the box flashes green to draw the player's attention. The player can also gain bonuses to their movement speed with a picking streak, displayed in the top right of the screen with a countdown bar. The streak is increased by completing consecutive orders within 20 seconds of each other. The player's max speed variable begins with a value of 6, but this is bumped up to 8 once they complete one pick. Once a streak of 3, the speed reaches 12, and at 5 picks this becomes 15. While the boost in speed is helpful in collecting picks quickly, especially for items upstairs, the trade-off is that the player character is more difficult to control. There is also a debug mode, which is toggled on or off using the Q key. When active, the paths of all nav mesh agents are displayed on the ground and colour-coded to match the agent type. The manager's path is also shown, but their path is calculated in a node-based system, so a cube represents each node in the path and remains in place until either debug mode is turned off or a new path is generated. Furthermore, I added audio within the context of the simulation. There is a footstep sound effect for the player which I found online, as well as background music which consists of short guitar segments from 3 songs which I do not own, but the samples were performed and recorded by me. The music is not included in this video or in the executable on my itch.io page due to copyright. There are also various other sound effects such as beeps and dings when a customer is using a browser, and a slight thud when an item is placed down. These sounds were also recorded by me. In my initial plan for the project, I imagined the customer's behaviour being relatively simple, and the staff members being more complicated. However, after creating a finite state machine for the customer and a behaviour tree for the staff, I think the agent's behaviour management systems should have been swapped, although, due to time constraints with the project, this would not have been possible as I only came to this conclusion after having the experience of creating both systems. To improve upon the current systems, I think some of the customer's states could be merged, for example find item and pay for item, as both behaviours take place at a browser, and the logic for paying for an item is relatively simple in its current form. However, the find item state is a bit more complicated, which is my initial reasoning for creating a separate state for it. Even though the behaviour systems may not be perfect for each agent, the systems still work correctly and any issues found have been addressed. The biggest issues throughout development were building the finite state machine and behaviour tree. It took a while to figure out the best structure for each system. For example, figuring out how many states the customer needs, could any be merged, or make use of parameters to be used in more than one situation. For the most part, states were kept separate and simple to avoid any overcomplication. The behaviour for the staff is simpler, but there were issues when creating the classes for the tree and nodes, as I had not created a behaviour tree myself before. I spent a lot of time researching implementations online, such as tutorials by Mina Pesho and the Kiwi Coder on YouTube. Both were very useful and had a lot of in-depth information, but had more functionality than I needed. In the end, I used the base structure for the tree and node classes as shown in Mina Pesho's tutorial, but omitted functions for searching for data throughout the tree, and I created my own condition and action nodes. Finally, if I were to do this again, the main change I would make would be to outline agents' behaviour more specifically before deciding what behaviour management system to use for them, which would result in more suitable behaviour systems for each agent. This wraps up the overview and analysis of my AI warehouse project. Thank you very much for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.